There's a house at the end of my street with a single light in the upstairs window. It's always on. Rain or shine. Morning or midnight. A soft amber glow, like someone forgot to turn it off, or maybe, like someone needed it on, just in case. I've lived on this street for 11 years. Moved in after my divorce, after the hard years. After I learned how loud a quiet house can be. At first, I didn't notice the light. I was too busy building a life from pieces. Rearranging the furniture. Picking out new dishes. Pretending to be fine. But after a while, I began to see it. Every night, that light flickered gently behind gauzy curtains. Never changing. Never dark. I started to wonder about the person who lived there. Were they old? Young? Alone, like me? I imagined an elderly woman with a robe and a cat, watching old movies with low sound. Or maybe a young man with a broken heart, staring out at the world but not yet ready to rejoin it. Or perhaps no one at all. Maybe the light was left by someone long gone, and no one thought to turn it off. Loneliness makes you imagine things. It makes you invent stories to make sense of your own. I keep a little dog named Penny. She's old now, half blind, but she still wags her tail when I come home like I'm the best thing that ever happened. She's been with me through it all, through endings and beginnings, through loss and laughter. There's a kind of love in animals that doesn't ask for much, just presence. Just closeness. We have a routine. I make my tea in the morning, walk her around the block, and pass the house with the upstairs light. Penny always pauses there. Sniffs the grass. Looks toward the window. I like to imagine she senses something I can't. Dogs are good at that, feeling things we don't say out loud. My name is Emily. I used to be married for 20 years, a long journey filled with anniversaries, routines, and the shared understanding that some days would be challenging. Mark was a good man most of the time, yet slowly, we stopped communicating long before we stopped living together. It wasn't anyone's fault, really, just two people drifting apart, pulled in different directions by the unpredictable forces of time and change. When he left, I didn't cry initially. Instead, I focused on cleaning. I scrubbed the house until my hands felt raw, rearranged the living room furniture multiple times over one weekend, and hung new curtains. I believed that by changing the environment, I could somehow transform the pain I felt inside. But it didn't work. That first year was the loneliest. Not because I didn't have people. I did. Friends called. My sister invited me to stay. But there's a difference between being around people and being with someone. That feeling of being known, even in silence. I missed that. I missed being seen. Maybe that's why the light mattered. It meant someone else was there. Awake. Keeping watch. A quiet companion in the distance. One evening in late October, the light wasn't on. I stopped in my tracks. I stared at the window, then looked again, as if my eyes had betrayed me. It was dark. No flicker. No amber glow. Just the blank stare of glass. And I felt it, an unexpected tug, like a thread being pulled from inside me. I hadn't realized how much comfort that little light gave me. How much I relied on it, like a lighthouse in the distance, steady and silent. Penny whimpered softly. I lingered there for a few minutes, watching the darkness. Then we walked home slowly, as if part of the world had shifted ever so slightly off its axis. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, thinking of the darkened window. I thought of going over, knocking on the door, just to check. But, what would I say? Hi, I'm your neighbor from a few houses down. I've been watching your upstairs window for a decade and noticed your light is off. Are you okay? It sounded ridiculous, even in my head. So I stayed put. The light stayed off for days. And something inside me grew quiet. The kind of quiet that's heavy. I didn't know this person, but I missed them. Or at least, I missed what their presence meant to me. That someone else was awake. Someone else was carrying their own quiet ache, their own story. And that maybe, in some unspoken way, we'd kept each other company without even knowing it. One Thursday morning, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was a plain white envelope with no return address, but my name was written on it. I opened it right there on the porch, holding Penny's leash loosely in one hand. Inside was a short note. "I'm sorry I turned the light off. It wasn't meant to be a signal, but I see now that it was. You're not alone. I wasn't either. Thank you for noticing. M." I read it twice. Then a third time. I looked up, down the street toward the darkened window. And I cried. Not a lot. Just enough to feel something unstick inside me. It was the kind of cry that comes when a deep part of you is seen. When your quiet, faithful noticing is returned. The next day, as Penny and I passed the house, the light was back on. But something else was different too. The front door was open just a crack, and a woman stood on the porch. She looked to be around my age, maybe a little younger. She wore a navy sweater and held a steaming mug of coffee. Her eyes met mine, and she gave a tentative smile. "You must be the neighbor who walks by," she said. I nodded. "And you're the one with the light." She laughed softly, and the sound felt like something warm thawing. "I'm Miriam." I wrote the note. We stood in a long moment of shared quiet before I spoke. "I'm glad you turned it back on. I missed it." She looked down at her mug. "I turned it off the day my divorce became final. I thought I didn't need the reminder anymore. But then I realized, it wasn't just for me." We ended up sitting on her steps that morning, our mugs warming our hands against the early chill. She made a dry comment about how her coffee was half milk and entirely inadequate, and I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. "I used to think tea was a waste of water," I told her. "Now it's the only ritual that makes mornings feel manageable." She grinned, and we traded stories like old neighbors do, about ex-husbands, about quiet birthdays, about the weather and how it seems to echo your mood when you least want it to. Somewhere in the small talk, something real and necessary took root. We were no longer just women with pasts, we were becoming women with mornings shared. Talking like old friends. About heartbreak, healing, and routines that become rituals. About being seen. And the strange comfort of small, silent gestures. Now, we share morning walks with Penny. Sometimes we sit with our teas on her porch or mine. We still leave our lights on. But nothing lasts forever. One Saturday morning, about a year after that first porch conversation, I found a note tucked beneath my doormat. "Dear friend. I'm moving closer to my daughter. She's been asking for a while, and I think it's time. I'll miss our walks and our quiet talks. I'll miss Penny. And I'll miss looking out my window and knowing you're out there. Keep your light on. I'll be keeping mine on too. M." Her house is empty now. The curtains are gone. The porch sits still. But each night, I turn on my own upstairs light. And sometimes, in the early morning hours, I like to believe she's doing the same, hundreds of miles away, but still connected. Just two women who once saw each other in the dark, and kept their lights on. Sometimes, the light we notice in someone else's window becomes a quiet anchor in our own lives. And sometimes, we are that light, burning gently, letting others know they're not alone. This story reminds us that even the smallest gestures, leaving the light on, sharing a cup of tea, writing a note, can become lifelines in someone else's quiet hours. We never truly know the weight of what we offer just by being present, or the healing that begins when we are seen. People come and go, and seasons change. But connection, real, simple, human connection, has a way of lasting beyond what we expect. So maybe the most powerful thing we can do is to keep our lights on, for ourselves, and for each other. Thank you for watching. And if no one's told you lately, you are not alone.